إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. وبعد، Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير. All praise and all thanks be to Allah, the originator, the one that created the heavens and the earth, everything in them, and He's the one that gave them their properties, their inherent characteristics, the laws of physics. Father السماوات والأرض, the one that created them the way they are, He chose them to be this way. He's the one that gave them their nature, their intrinsic characteristics. الذي فطر السماوات والأرض, everything in them. جاعل الملائكة رسلا, He's the one that created angels and made them messengers between Him and humans. مثنى أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع. He creates angels different ways. Some have 2 wings, some have 3, 4. يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء. He can increases in His creation whatever He wills. Allah, all powerful, all capable. And the verse finishes, إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Oh, believers, understand. When you look to the way Allah creates and His ability and the variety and the strength and the power, Allah is capable of doing whatever He wants. Allah is the all-capable. And it's very interesting for a believer that sometimes as a abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's who I am, a abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I might be weak, but my Lord is the most powerful. I might be incapable, but my Lord is the most capable. I might be poor, but my Lord is the most rich. أنا عبد القدير, أنا عبد العزيز, أنا عبد القدير. My strength, my source of strength in this life does not come from me, I'm abd, but comes from my Lord. أنا عبد الله. Allah, you know who Allah is. قدير, قوي, متين, المنتقم, الجليل, الجبار, العلي, الكبير. That's Allah. I'm with Him. If you think to do anything to me, think twice. You might see me as weak, but do you know who I belong to? You know who? You oppress me, I'm Abdullah, be careful, Allah's there. You see me weak, Allah's Qadi. You see me ajiz, Allah's Qadir. This feeling of helplessness, that sometimes our ubudiyyah in this life, sometimes the life of this world makes us realize this. When we only look at ourselves, sometimes we find ourselves in a position that exhibits our weakness, exhibits our helplessness, individually and as an ummah. Sometimes individually I feel trapped. I have no recourse. I don't know what to do. My enemy is bigger than me. I've been oppressed and I'm so weak, I can't do anything. My enemy wins over me when he convinces me that I'm helpless. That's when we stop resisting. That's when we stop trying. That's when we surrender to the will of our enemy. A Muslim never surrenders to the will of his enemy, because a Muslim surrenders to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I never surrender to you. I never surrender to your power. I never surrender to your oppression. I never surrender, even if I'm so weak, I never surrender. I never surrender to my own self, to my own weakness, to my own desires. And sometimes that's what happens. I feel trapped by myself. I try, I never win against myself. I can't. But Allah can. Allah's al-Qadir. And interesting, 2 stories I want to share with you today, and it has to do with us individually and us as an ummah. Because sometimes we really feel helpless, and we sometimes are convinced that it will never be better, and this is the way we are. That's when we really lose. And that's what most of the time the enemy wants. When people torture, what are they trying to send them? You are helpless, stop resisting. I want to break you in a way, never stand up. But أنا عبد الجبار. One of the names of Allah is the All-Mender. Even if I slip, even if I make mistakes, He will mend me and I keep standing. I will never be broken. You can break me, but al-Jabbar, the compeller, the all-mender, you will never be able to break you. And you break me 100 times, he'll fix me 100 times. I never give up. Because it's not about you, it's about him. So you find the story, Malik al-Ashja'i came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they distressed, "O Prophet of Allah, my son Auf, he is a prisoner. The Mushrikeen caught him and they chained him and they locked him and he's their prisoner of war. What can I do? My son, I can't reach him. Nobody can reach him. Nobody can help him, you see. And he is in a state of what? As a prisoner of war. Do you have any power of control? Or you sit down and you're distracted, helpless, broken, at the disposal of your enemy. They can do whatever they want with you. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "More." And يكثر من قول لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Tell him, send him a message. The message is what? Maybe we're not able to help you directly with our means. Maybe nobody can save you. The humans can't help you. But keep saying, يكثر a lot. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. There is no power. There is no change of state except with Allah. Billah. Billah. By myself, I can do nothing. By Allah, everything is possible. Everything is possible. Allah can change any state. Allah has power. Let him keep saying that. And he started saying, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." Then something interesting happened. That kind of energized his heart. So he started moving his hands, like you're shackled. Right? There's chains. And he started pulling his hands left and right, and guess what? The chain broke. Which is interesting, because sometimes the chain that chains us, we're convinced that we can get out. So we never try. But he kept trying, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped. It's the will of Allah. How? I don't know. So the chain broke. And the chain on his leg broke. But wait a minute, he's still with the mushrikeen, he's still in their camp. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. How will I get home? How will I travel? I'm so far. How will I do it? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Bismillah. He went out, and guess what? A camel. Somebody left a camel. So he unties the camel, rides the camel. On the way out, something interesting happened. He sees the place where the tribe that captured him are storing their camels. A parking lot, camel parking lot, if you will. Right? So he goes and does what? He opens the gate. And guess what happened? All the camels of this tribe started following his camel. And he started, now he's having a car. Right? And he started riding all the way to the city of Medina. And all of a sudden his dad says, "I can hear my son out far away Kaaba." And he goes out not only to find his son, not only with one camel, with 100 camels with him. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The faraj of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is near. Don't give up. The hawl and the quwwah is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We keep trying. And you never know when it will happen. But we never get convinced that I can do nothing, I'm helpless. We are never helpless. Because Allah is the most capable. You know, our ummah sometimes went as a group. We went through times in histories that were very, very dark, even worse than today. And a second story I want to share with you is very powerful. It has to do with one of the darkest chapters in history, in our Islamic history. The Mongol invasion. That's a time where the Muslim ummah, we had the Khilafah, we had the Dawla al-Khwarizmiyya and the followers of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, but then something happened. The Mongols came. And I'm not going to tell you exactly the details, but we know what happened. The year 617, when they started to attack the area of Pakistan, called modern-day Pakistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Central Asia, huge area that was the Dawla al-Khwarizmiyya. It's a powerful area. Where Bukhara is, where Samarkand is, where Tirmidh is. Those are the city of scholars. Imam al-Bukhari, Tirmidhi, Samarkand. Millions of Muslims live there. 3-4 million except in that area. And the Mongols attacked. In 1 year, they did terrible things to the Muslims of this region. They overpowered everybody. To the extent that people say that the population was 3 million. That year, they reduced the Muslim population to 200,000. They didn't kill 30,000, millions died. But what they used against the Muslims was psychological warfare. They started convincing the Muslims that they cannot fight and that the Mongols are superpower. They're undefeatable. And the Muslims started to take that, and the story continues. When you read what happened, Ibn al-Athir, even scholars, when they wrote about it, Ibn al-Athir writing about this year 617, he says, it was very difficult for me to write about this year. And how can it not be when I'm writing the condolences of Islam? You know what that means? The scholars convinced the Khutbah. The Mongols are there, and they overpowered the Muslims, they took Baghdad, they killed the Khalifa of the Muslims, and when that happened, the Muslim cities started to panic, and people started to surrender, and there were people that just opened the cities for them. We can't fight. And the cities in Sham, the massacres, everyone, what turned the tide? What happened? And that's what I want to share with you. The known thing that we know is what? Yeah, the Mamluks of Egypt. Qutuz, Bibars, the samurai of the Muslims, kind of those warrior elites. They stood with scholars like Reza ibn Abd al-Salam, defeated the Mongols in the Battle of Ain Jalut, and that's when we put a stop to them. And that's when the Muslims finally stopped the Mongol invasion. Something is missing. And this is what I want to share with you today. When, the Mongols were defeated in Egypt, in the Battle of Ain Jalut, on the hands of the warriors, great people. And history, we speak a lot about them, Qutuz and Bibars, and great scholars like Reza ibn Abd al-Salam, but there is a question. Holako, tyrant who killed the Khalifa and killed millions of Muslims. In Baghdad, he killed 800,000. He was dead. Blood. Why didn't he come back? He was defeated in one battle. The Mongols were still there. It's a vast empire. So okay, the Mamluks defeated them and they just decided, khalas, we give up. Who took Baghdad? Who liberated Baghdad? The Mamluks didn't. Why the Mongols didn't return back for vengeance for what happened at Ain Jalut? Why didn't Holako come back and attack Egypt again? He had a vast army. And the real story, the hero I want to share with you, is someone we don't speak about. And it's someone that I think is very relevant to us today. When Holako did what he did in Central Asia, the ruler was Muhammad ibn Khwarizm. To humiliate that ruler, those tyrants, Genghis Khan and his clan, they captured the family members of Muhammad ibn Khwarizm. And you know what they did? They started killing the males, and what did they do to the females? Imagine your daughter, a princess, the daughter of Muhammad ibn Khwarizm, raised as princess, daughter of the Sultan, the most powerful. He took the daughters of Muhammad ibn Khwarizm, and what did he do? You are slave girls now. To humiliate Muhammad ibn Khwarizm. He took one of them, her name was Rizal, and he gave her to his son, Juji. Take. Hey, she was a princess one day, now she's your slave. Take her. If you were Risala Khatun, how would you feel? Not only a slave of who? A slave of Netanyahu? Slave of the Genghis Khan? The monster? What power do you have? Who can save you? The Khalifa couldn't save himself. And you're under their grip, in their lands, and now you belong to his son. But subhanAllah, this young woman who had such a character, such a good akhlaq, and such a good interpretation of Tawheed, that Juji, the son of Genghis Khan, was so impressed with her as a slave girl, he freed her. And then he married her. Wait a minute, it's a kafir. How can I marry a kafir marry? She didn't have anything to say, she's powerless. But he started, I'm impressed with her. And she started to speak to him about Islam and Muslims. And Juji, the son of Genghis Khan, started to have a soft spot for Muslims. And in his area, Muslims were spared the tyranny throughout which they faced. But something more interesting happened. She had a son. Had a son from the grandson of Genghis Khan. Can you imagine? Being a Muslim woman, and now your son is the grandson of Genghis Khan, the one that did all what? That's your son, and what is he going to become? He's being raised by the Mongol Empire with his grandfather. He's going to become one of them. There is no Islamic schools. There is no, what are you going to do? You're helpless. But she started, despite her situation, despite being trapped, despite hopelessness, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, bismillah. She started teaching her son as much as she can. Quran, Allah, Tawheed, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And she exhibited a character her son was actually very interested. But then, I'm a Mongol. Genghis Khan is my father. Holako is my cousin. I'm the ruling. And he was kind of confused. This Islam looks nice. And she told him, on your way to the capital of Mongolia, stop in the city of Bukhara and just speak with some of the scholars there. And her son did that. He stopped and he spoke with one of the scholars, Sadr al-Din al-Zahidi, one of the scholars of the time, and he started telling her about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who the Prophet is. And he started asking, how do I know? Why is it Islam? What about Christianity? What about Buddhism? I'm confused, like many of the people raised here. There's so many things around. You guys are not the superpower. Why did this happen to you? Where is your Lord? Look at us and look at you. And he kept answering. But this son, he told him, write me a book. Write me a book. And the scholar wrote him a book, Al-Risala Nasiriyya. We still have it. This son took that book, read it, he came back to his mother and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Mom, I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim by conviction. I'm changing my name. And he's called himself Baraka Khan. Baraka. That's my name. And immediately that was the time when the Khilafah fell and Ain Jalut happened, and he started sending letters to the members of Egypt. I'm a Mongol, but I became Muslim. And I announced Islam is the religion of the state. And he started building a school, and he built a city. He made the city Sarai Baraka, invited scholars to it, teach. Hundreds of thousands of Mongols accepted Islam. This next thing, he said, Huardo, my own cousin, my own lineage, he is the enemy of the Muslims. Look what he did to the Khalifa. He sent a letter to the Mamluks, I am going to fight Huardo. And he started moving, and he started fighting with Huardo and defeated him in numerous battles. That's how the Ummah was spared. The reason the Mongols never returned to Egypt was not the Mamluks. The real hero was not Qutuz and Bibar Salom, Barak Khan. He stood and he made those people pay the price. A lot of Mongols accepted Islam on his hands. And this is how Islam entered to Central Asia, on his hands. But who's the real story, the hero of the story? Yeah, Qutuz on one hand, and Barak Khan. You can read about his battles and this young man and his determination and his wala and bara. He's fighting his people. And he would tell neighbors, he would cry, fighting his own people, 100,000 dying, he would cry and see this was my people. I hate to see them. But what do my wala is for Allah. Allah's first. La ilaha illallah's first. I fight for that. He's a tyrant. He's my cousin, but he's a tyrant. But the hero is not Barak Khan. Who's the hidden hero? Where did Barak Khan come from? His mother, Risala Khatun. Look at that woman not giving up. That woman raised, she's under the feet of the Mongols in a situation. She never gave up. She never gave up Islam. She still raised her son as much as she can to be a Muslim. And Allah wrote the Fath on this ummah through her hands. I can spend the khutbah, I wonder how many times was she crying in her room? How many times was she oppressed? Was she beaten? How many times was she subjected to situations that we cannot imagine? How many decades and years she never gave up? She saw the men in this ummah giving up, literally. Rulers surrendered their city. The despicable things happened. She did not. She was not psychologically defeated. They could not break that woman. She said, La ilaha illallah, I will worship Allah to the best of my capacity, even in this situation. That's what we need. She did not give up. That's a hero. That's a superhero. That's, subhanAllah, maybe a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know much about her, but Allah knows about her. Remember, the change, and I want you to see also a lesson. يَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Who? This Barak Khan, where did he come from? Went from his mother, Risala Khan. It was Genghis Khan. He did this to himself. He wanted to humiliate Muhammad ibn Khawarizm. Look at that. Like Musa the Pharaoh. You took his daughter and you gave her to your son. She made your grandson a Muslim and he destroyed your empire. You did that to yourself. Their plan came to hold them. Today the same thing. يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا. We don't give up because we know who's in control. Any of us, no matter where we're at, no matter how powerless you feel, do your job. You think Risala Khatun really one day told that her son is born? No, perhaps not. But she knew, I'm a abd of Allah. I don't give up. I try my best. وَمَا لَا يُدْرَكْ كُلُّ لَا يُدْرَكْ كُلُّ. If something I cannot retain in its entirety, I do as much as I can in it, even in a very dark situation. Sisters that are trapped today, don't despair. You can still change the world even if you're trapped. Brothers that are trapped, Sometimes we're trapped in a job, in a country, in prison. Sometimes we're trapped psychologically. We're never trapped because almost there. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I do my job and I assured victory will come. Victory will come from a place we never thought. But I'm required to do what? I do not give up. I do what I can. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Let's be on عبد القدير, not عبد الضعيف. My Lord is not ضعيف, my Lord is قوي. My Lord is not عاجز, my Lord is القدير. I'm not عبد of myself and my hawa and my powers and my intellect and my family and my nationality and my passport and my wealth. No. This is not where I get my strength. It fails me. If my strength is in those things, at a certain point, it will fail me. If it does not fail me in this life, it will fail me when the angel of death comes. The angel of death comes and I realize I'm really incapable. Nothing can be a superpower here. The angel of death comes to the person, what are you going to say? I cannot reframe it. I cannot play psychological tricks. I cannot use my wealth, I cannot use my status, I cannot use my children, I cannot use my passport, I cannot use the armies of this world. Nothing will save me except Al-Qadir, Al-Ali, Kabir, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Let me embody that. That if the world tells me I'm most incapable, Allah's telling me, with me you're the most capable. If the world tells me you're the most weak, Allah's telling me, with me you're the most powerful. If the world tells me we will not going to help you, Allah says, Ana al-Mu'in, Ana al-Wali. He's the one that aids and He's the one that aids me. In that, let me find peace. Let us learn from the Prophet ﷺ. Let us learn from our history. Let us learn from that woman that saved this ummah, Risala Khatun. And we don't know much about her. Subhanallah. Let's not be the people that in her time, they were Muslims in that time. And it narrates one Mongol who entered on 100 men. And he would say, everybody stay where you're at till I kill all of you. And everybody's. And he starts killing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100. What's the problem here? They were convinced we can't fight. They were convinced we're helpless. They were convinced I have to submit. That's the defeat. That's the real defeat. Let nobody convince us, no matter how many times we break down, that we are helpless. We are never helpless. Why? Because Allah's al-Qadir. We are never weak. Why? Because Allah's al-Qawi. We slip 100 times. We never despair. Why? Because Allah's al-Ghafur. Allah's al-Afur. I can do something. I never despair. Why? Because Allah's al-Wali. The caretaker, the one that will aid me do it. I can, He can. Let's live by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let's do our part. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم ارزقنا سلام الإسلام وأمن الإيمان وحسن الإحسان. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك شر زماننا هذا وإحداث الفتن وتطاول أهل الجرأة علينا. اللهم اجعلنا منك في حرز منيع وحصن حصين حتى نصل إليك يا رب معافين. اللهم تولى أمرنا وأمر إخواننا في فلسطين. اللهم انصرنا بك لك. اللهم أعنا بك لك. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وسلم.